Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Heller.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and it's a pleasure to follow up after my friend from Montana and the piece of legislation that we put together. I'd like to just run down just a little bit, Mr. Chairman, what this legislation does, because in the vein of what he was saying, and I think I want to continue my questions down that path of the importance of accountability, transparency, and collaboration. I think that's incredibly important as we move forward. And I certainly hope, Mr. Chairman, that you'll take a good look at this because I think it's an important piece of legislation. I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with the Treasury's answers coming from the good senator from Montana, but we'll certainly try to get there. What we're trying to do in this effort is to make sure that the Federal Reserve and the Treasury provide Congress with an annual report and testimony on their activities with these forums, especially the International Insurance Forum. There was a good article today in the Wall Street Journal that discussed what we introduced yesterday, and I certainly believe that Senator Tester and I are moving in the right direction. What we really want for our bill is to ensure that the Federal Reserve and the Treasury study and report to U.S. consumers and the market before they enter into international capital standards. So let me try the Federal Reserve a little bit, Mr. Vanderwide. Shortly after the Federal Reserve joined the International Association of Insurance Supervisors, the IAIS voted to shut out the public observers, including consumer groups, from most of the meetings. Can you tell us how our representative voted on this issue?
So the Federal Reserve has been supportive of the IAIS structural reforms. Similar to FIA, we felt like net those were good global regulatory policy moves. It is important, though, as the IAIS removes the paid observer status and obtains funding that is not coming from the industry, that they keep as much of the transparency benefits of the old program as they can. They are doing what they can. They are holding multiple stakeholder meetings quite frequently on their developing capital rules and supervisory framework. They plan to continue to do that in fully formal, fully public meeting environments, more public transparency than was before on those meetings. So we're generally supportive of this IAIS move. I think it's incumbent on us as well, as U.S. members of IAIS, to enhance that global transparency and to provide as much U.S. stakeholder transparency as possible. And we've been doing that over the last 6 to 9 months. We plan to continue to do that going forward.
Let me make sure I understand your answer. So when the IAIS voted to shut out the public, our representative voted with the majority on that.
So the Federal Reserve does not have a member on the executive committee, the highest decision-making level body of the IAIS, so I cannot say that we've...
How about the Treasury Department? Did you have a representative on there?
That's correct, Senator.
How'd they vote?
We voted in support of the enhanced transparency that resulted from the structural changes. So this year, for the first time, we have required public sessions for all of the IAIS work streams. Last year, as I mentioned, there were just over 10 to 12 hours of those sessions. This year already we have about 50 to 60 hours and counting. So we're pleased with the level of engagement. It's much more substantive, technicals, and the opportunities for engagement are much greater than ever before.
Mr. McCarty, do you have any comments?
Well, I agree with my colleagues that we needed to amend the process as it was. We needed to amend the pay to play. But there was many other less intrusive ways of doing it than just closing it out completely to observers and consumers. I voted against that change. So did all of my colleagues from the NAIC. I sincerely believe that both the Federal Reserve and FIO are really looking for better ways to include stakeholders, but I was at the first stakeholders meeting, and I don't think it was going in the right direction in terms of the interaction that was necessary to provide the kind of feedback that the insurance industry needs in order for them to be a meaningful partner in the development of these standards. And hopefully going forward, our colleagues can work together to find ways to improve that system.
Mr. Chairman, I'm grateful that we have our witnesses with us today and their expertise. I just want to reemphasize the importance of this piece of legislation. We are talking accountability, transparency, and collaboration. I want to see that done. That's why Senator Tester and I are working together on this. So thank you.
Thank you.